Hi everyone, my name is Madelyn Gardner. I am the PR manager at Jazz Lincoln Center, and I want to welcome you back and thank you for joining us for our second ever episode of Jazz Intersections. Our new weekly Instagram live show will have new guests every week from all walks of life, from dancers to musicians to activists, a little bit of everything, all intersecting at jazz. So I'm very excited about this week's guest, and before I bring him in, I'd like to give a little introduction. He is a quadruple threat, that's right, more than a triple threat, it's quadruple, that's four, in the world of arts, where he's making his mark in singing, dancing, acting, and choreographing. He's danced alongside legends such as Wynton Marsalis, performed for Barack Obama at the Kennedy Center. He's toured with Mariah Carey and danced for artists such as Common and Vogue, Busta Rhymes, and The Roots. He's danced and choreographed for Broadway, has numerous TV acting credits, and you can currently catch him on NBC's Manifest. So, as I attempt to bring him here into the chat, please, let's see here, welcome Grimes. Maybe some emojis, hand clapping emojis. Hey!
Hey, I'm in it.
You're in. That's always my least favorite part. I'm like, can I get him in? Are they
I'm
gonna be
on
here?
I'm on I'm on time today too. I'm doing something.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Where are you? Are you in New York right now?
I'm in North Carolina.
Oh, nice. Okay. How is it over there?
It's good. It's spaced out. It's warm. It's super hot. So it's a different type of hot than New York. It's like dry, humid. Hot.
Sounds fun. Well, I appreciate you joining today, and I wanted to kind of kick things off by talking about tap and jazz.
Yeah.
Two, African American derived art forms have such a rich, intertwined history. So my
hmm
question for you is if you can tell us about your journey with jazz, how it shaped you as a human and as a dancer, and the world around you.
It's funny when it comes to jazz, it was nothing throughout my entire life. It was nothing that I really um knew was like, hey, that's jazz. Like it had always just really been on in the background or just on a radio or just it had already it was always like around me. And so it's funny because I just kind of went throughout life, learning how to dance and learning the arts and stuff like that. And I would hear so many different kinds of music, and jazz would just be one of the many different genres of music that I would like dance to or perform to or practice to. And it's funny because I can never really like remember as a child growing up, I can never really remember being like, yeah, that's a jazz song or that's jazz. It was just I'd automatically like stripped the label of what it was and just like adapted and attached myself to the feel. Um, and that's with music in general. Like I said, I can't really remember me being like, hey, that's R&B or that's pop or that's rock. It was just, to me, music was just music growing up, and it had different feels. And as a tap dancer, I started dancing when I was 3, and I feel like because of that fact, I feel like I wasn't able to really separate music. Like it was, like I said just before, music was just music. And then as I started to learn more about music as I got older, in like high school and stuff like that, I was like, oh yeah, well everything is jazz. I was like, I was
Right.
like, I was like, everything is jazz. So I think part of me just, being a kid that just loved to perform and sing and dance and stuff like that, and just immerse myself in the arts. I think part of that, growing up, just understanding the feel and the nature of what music was doing to my ears and, to my spirit. And then finally, intellectually understanding what it was. I think that kind of helped me just understand even more so how everything is jazz. Like I'm not even really able to listen to any song and not hear a jazz tune or a jazz feel, which I know is not anything out of the normal. But as a tap dancer, it's one of those things that like you eat, sleep, and breathe the foundation of all music, whether you want to or not. And so I think my first time actually dancing with like a jazz orchestra, I like in its entirety, like in a professional setting, I think was at Jazz at Lincoln Center. Um,
That's
and
awesome.
I didn't even know what song. Wynton called me up the first time I performed with him. I snuck backstage at Jazz because he was doing a performance, I think with Ahmad Jamal and Jeff Tain Watts or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
It was like 2000, forever ago. And I snuck backstage because Jeff Tain Watts was doing some crazy stuff on the drums. And I was like, I want to sneak backstage. And I was like, oh, I remember a couple of riffs that you were doing, like in the audience and everything. That's the first jazz show I'd ever been to as well. And then Wynton was behind me and he was like, oh, I hear you. Gave me a card. And I'm like, all right, cool. You know, people give you a card. You don't expect anything, you know, of it. I was dancing in the subways at that time. So like, you know, when you dance in the
Wow.
subways, like over 100 people will give you their card and it doesn't even really, you know, it's just a card. And then I was performing somewhere. I don't even know how he knew where I was, but I was at like Chelsea Studios, and I got a call over the intercom from the receptionist, and they were like, "Yeah, Wynton Marsalis is on the phone." I'm like, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Wynton Marsalis is on the phone." And then I was on the phone, and he was like, "Yo, I got a show tonight." He was like, "I
I
want you."
would have had a heart attack.
He's like, "I want you to come down and rock." You know what I mean? Bring two friends that you have, and you know, come down and rock. And I remember we each took part in a tune on that particular evening, and I didn't even know what he was going to play, but yet I just knew the form of it right away. As soon as they started playing, I was like, all right, for some reason, I know what this is.
Hmm.
Never heard of the song before, too. And, you know, from that point on, I was just like, okay, cool. Well, this, you know, jazz just has always innately been in me, you know, since I was conceived. And it was just up to me to kind of recognize that blessing. And, you know, once I grasped that it was a blessing, like I never stopped recognizing it, no matter what type of music I was listening to, what type of conversation I was having, what type of musician I was rocking with. It just yeah, it's really just shaped and cultivated my discipline and my mind when it comes to just being, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. So you know, and as a tap dancer, you know, you don't normally see us tap dancing to jazz as much as, you know, as much as we used to, you
Hmm.
know, decades ago and stuff like that. But you know, whenever we get to it, it's definitely a refreshing feeling of home that just takes over and just pretty much overshadows anything that we're doing in that moment. So I could have been dancing for 3 hours on stage, but that one jazz tune that I rock to, that's the one that's gonna hit. That's the one that's gonna hit everybody. So it's pretty much just shaped who I am as a person, and you know, just you know, shaped my very existence.
That's an incredible story, and it's so interesting too because obviously at the root of jazz is improv, and so you did the song, you're like, all right, I guess I can do this, and like you must have been like, this is happening. It's just
Yeah.
that's a really, really cool, amazing story. And also, I just want to say, anyone watching this, while that is an amazing story, if you sneak back at Jazz Lincoln Center, just maybe you're not. I mean, this might happen to you, but also like that might not be your
Yeah,
storyline. So
yeah.
it's just lucky.
I don't advise that. I don't advise. I don't even know how. I don't know how it happened.
I know, and
I
our
think
ushers
it's
are very devoted. I mean, they
yo. We
knew
just
someone
knocked.
was
It
on.
was me and DeWitt Fleming, and we just great tap dancer DeWitt Fleming. We just knocked on the door, and I think the security guard, you know, thought that we were, you know, guests or
Hmm.
somebody. And I mean, I beeline right at Jeff Tain Watts. I was just like, man, I gotta talk to you about some things that you did, bro. So
That's
it was
amazing.
really cool. So.
That's incredible. Well, kind of shifting things a little bit to today's world, if you can call it that. I did notice in this, even at the very start of the pandemic, you really jumped into like, all right, we're gonna make this the virtual world, right? So
Hmm.
entertainment becoming this kind of strictly for right now virtual thing by offering, virtual dance lessons and really trying to tie the community together.
Yeah.
Um, how do you envision your work changing or evolving post COVID world? And what are your tips on continuing to support and engage the music art and community right now, going into the future?
Well, it's funny because in the live space, you know, that's where we've thrived for so long. I mean, if you're in theater or if you're, you know, a live musician, you know, we've seen to thrive in the live space day in and day out, and the opportunities to actually be in the television or film medium, you know, are few far in between. So a lot of us have made our career and you know, kind of patterned our lives after every once in a while doing something that's on television or in film, but most of the time we're on the road, or most of the time we're on Broadway or doing live stuff, and for me, that space, the television and film space, is something that I kind of grew up watching. So I performed a lot when I was coming up in the ranks, but it was never a necessity. It was always, an opportunity. Not that it's a necessity for anybody, but it just wasn't a job for me. It was just like, oh, I got a gig. That's cool. I wasn't even like, when I was, a kid or, in high school and stuff like that, I wasn't making any money. It was just for the experience.
Mm.
And so that kind of stayed with me my entire life. Like I never, approached a live concert setting or a theatrical gig as a means of survival or as a means of employment. I've always approached it as an opportunity to evolve and to create and explore and share with an audience at the same time. And so now that that's been taken away from the world, I grew up. I fell in love with tap and music. Watching Sammy Davis Jr. and Duke Ellington in films and the Nicholas Brothers and Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly and the Berry Brothers and Baby Lawrence, like all these tap dancers, Bill Robinson, all these tap dancers that pretty much paved the way for all these mainstream artists. You know what I'm saying? And I grew up on those guys, so there was a large part of my life where I was like, well, this is the pinnacle. Like this is how we get into the consciousness of everybody. It's hard to get into the consciousness of everybody, on the road because it's a very specific thing. There's a television box in everybody's home, but there's not a theater in everybody's home, or there's not a concert space in everybody's home. And so, as the pandemic kind of hit, I started salivating at the mouth or salivating at the feet because I was like, man, yo, this is an opportunity that will really force, a lot of artists to take over, the television and film medium. And that can be a huge anecdote into preserving, the history. Because like I said, that people can access television and film way more than they can access, a theater or a live concert setting. So in order to be able to thrive and to start to push our efforts in that direction, can really open up a lot of doors for us in terms of educating the world as to what jazz and what, the arts are, in a way that, may have been limiting us, before the pandemic. So while I don't encourage a pandemic to, to get people to think about their art form in a different space, I do think it's an opportunity to really, 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 really get people that we may not be able to get, in the live space. So in the pandemic hit, I was like, man, I'm teaching to all these students from all around the world, Italy, Greece, the UK, Australia, Japan. It's just been New Zealand. Like, it's just been, these kids are kids that, like, if they come to New York and they want to take class with me, they have like a 1 in a million chance of actually, the scheduling working for their for their wishes. Because I might be on the road, I might be, on set, I might be doing something like that, and they will have come all the way from wherever it is that they come from and miss out on that opportunity. But I'm just a Zoom away now. Like you can, like you can get a session in with me, or you can, get a private or a lesson, or we can just vibe at the click of a button. And while I know it's not really, the live experience, it is a experience, and there is a lot to learn from it. And so, I just been in the lab. My garage is my lab now. I got the boards and the sprung boards and everything set up in there. And so, even for me, it's like, I came to North Carolina because in the city, I can't really access a studio the way I want it. So I came down to North Carolina.
And your neighbors would probably really be maybe a little upset with you.
Yeah, and I'm on the third floor, so that definitely was not happening. And so I was like, I came to North Carolina because I knew I could, like, stay in the shed. I could continue to train and continue to evolve by just walking through my kitchen and going through the garage. And a part of the evolution of that is being able to share with people that I may not ordinarily be able to experience. So, these people that are, reaching out to me from all around the world for tap lessons, I'm in the lab with them, just creating and coming up with stuff all hours of the day. To whereas, without a pandemic, I'm not home a lot at all. So, I think it's an opportunity to really share with people in a way that we may have been neglecting in the past.
Absolutely agree. And I wonder, what's the hurdle that you had to kind of figure out while doing these virtual lessons? I mean, when I'm, we're interacting with the Jazz Link Center's interacting with people throughout the entire world too, which is incredible. But like, of course, there was virtual hurdles along the way. But so with dancing, like when you're teaching, did you like, was there like certain things you're like, oh, I guess I have to kind of face this way and be like, what was like the biggest hurdle you would say?
Yeah, I think that for me, the biggest hurdle was just figuring out how to use Zoom.
Yep.
After that, I was good to go. Because I mean,
Amazing.
essentially, a tap class or a dance class is, you're seeing something and you're hearing me speak, and then the student is pretty much copying what that is to the best of their ability. So being in a class of 30 or 40 people is no different than sitting in front of your laptop trying to figure out what I'm doing. And we've all learned dance moves and we've all learned music from watching videos, TV
Mm.
and movies. So essentially, we've gone back to what we used to do before we had access to a live teacher. So it's just, for me, like I said, the most difficult part was trying to figure out Zoom. And when you're teaching tap, you have to change the audio settings so that way it doesn't cancel out the background sound, because
Mm.
Zoom thinks that the tap is background noise. So for a while, it took me a couple sessions to figure out how to adjust it's called background noise and intermittent background noise,
Mm.
so that way I could hear my student live, in the session. Before that, it was like they were on mute, so I had to guess what they were doing, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know. I was like, I think you did good. I was like, I think that was good. I was
You're
like,
like, I felt it. I bet you did a
I
really good job.
think that was good. And then a friend of mine told me about the adjustment, and I was like, oh man. So
I,
it was an
I'm
awakening.
I'm sure that the people that created Zoom had no idea that people would be teaching jazz tap or dance lessons throughout the entire world. But I'm
Oh
sure they're
man,
very happy that that's happening.
boy, I wish I had stock in Zoom before.
I know. If anyone here watching has some kind of like, go back in time thing, I mean, let's stop the pandemic, but also maybe let's invest in Zoom.
Yeah, yeah. Let's
Ideas.
invest in certain things that could possibly happen in our lifetime. So,
Exactly. Well, talking about going back in time, little transition for you. I'm wondering if you have maybe a piece of advice for anyone watching right now that's hoping to go into either the dance field or the music field. There's the entertainment industry field. You have a piece of advice for them, maybe that you wish you heard when you started getting into everything.
oh man, you know what? For me, like I said, I grew up watching the Sammy Davis Juniors and the Fred Astaire's and all these people who were these iconic legends, um, because they were in movies.
Mm.
And so at that time, I wasn't really reading up on the journey that it took them to actually get to that point. So for a large portion of my life, I had this concept in my mind that I just wanted to immediately be that,
Mm.
because that's the quickest way to like have an effect on the world. And I wish I had understood the journey. And I know that's a lot of young folks coming up that have dreams of being a musician or artist or a dancer, um, or just in entertainment in general. I know it's so easy to kind of like fall in love with the cherry on top.
Mm.
But
Romanticize it, kind of.
yeah, and there's a lot of people that once they get there, they don't even enjoy it. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
there's no foundation there. And so, I had to really like kind of take a long look at myself in the mirror one day, and I had to kind of reassess what I valued as being important as an artist. And that's at that point, I feel like it was like when I was like down and out. I was in college. I couldn't afford books. My main source of income, like I said earlier, was like dancing in the subways and stuff like that. And I was just like, this is just not working. I thought it would like happen as soon as I got to New York. Um, and I was just starting to have, not doubts. I would never doubt my ability, but I just started having doubts on, where my focus was. And at that point, I decided to fall in love with the what I call the homework.
Mm.
Decided to fall in love with the process, with the journey. And so I completely forgot about the reward. And I
Mm.
was just like, let me fall in love with training. Let me fall in love with evolving. Let me fall in love with studying. Let me fall in love with failing. Let me fall in love with everything but the cherry on top. And let me see where that gets me. And once I made that mindset, my main focus, it's funny because all the doors that I wanted to open up for so long started to open up. It was
That-
just like, it was just a mindset change. So it was just, yeah, it's literally falling in love with the journey, falling in love with the process, falling in love with doesn't go your way. And I think that not only prepares you for the doors that you want to open, but that just makes you more of a lethal asset to the world of the arts and to the way it evolves for the generations after you.
That's I couldn't even ask for a more beautiful answer than that. That's such a great way to look at
Oh,
that and really everything in your life. Don't fall in love with that. You, it's good to have end goals, but it's the in between that's like the important
yeah,
part to grow.
yeah.
I'm like taking notes myself to try to remember this for everything else too. So thank you, appreciate it. And well, I have a couple more questions, but if anyone has any questions here too for Jerry, please go ahead and type it in the comments. But oh, I had a question for you. Is it
Yeah.
important for a dancer or a tap dancer to be in particular to know how to play a percussive instrument?
Um, I think in my experience, I feel like a lot of tap dancers kind of gravitated towards tap because of some type of percussive, I was call it a percussive passion. I started off playing the drums a little bit before I got into tap. But I got into tap and as a 3-year old, I think that was just like way more exciting and I was, hyperactive. So there was just, I wasn't sitting down at a set and playing. I was now playing while being up and running around.
Mm.
For me, I think musically, whatever way you need to express yourself, you want to seek an outlet for that. For me, it was tap. Do I think it helps to understand how to play the drums or to understand the drums or a percussive instrument or an instrument at all? I think it definitely does help. But for me, like I said, I tried piano, I tried the drums, I tried a couple instruments growing up, and tap was just it. And I just think because tap entered my life in a way that allowed me to understand all those instruments that I tried and didn't really enjoy playing. For some reason, I was able to channel what those instruments are or the way they made me feel through tap. So I could, if it's a clarinet, if it's a trombone, if it's, I could produce those feels, with my tap shoes. I can produce the colors of a guitar or of a trumpet or of an upright bass, with my tap shoes. So I think whatever works for that particular artist, I think is the way to go. It's weird because I went through a phase too. I would say like in maybe 2000 and 2009, 2010, where I was doing a project and I was in Montreal for like a year and a half. And I was like, while in my downtime, I was like, I was like, I'm gonna learn how to play the piano.
Mm.
Like it was
I
just
feel
like
like
it was
we've
just
all
gonna
reached
happen.
that point. We're like, all right, this is it. It's time
Like
to
it
learn to play
was
piano.
it was just gonna happen. I was like, in my downtime, I'm just gonna learn how to play the piano. And I got to a point where like I got really good at coming up with chords, and I could hear a song and play the chords to the song after hearing it, come up with my own chords and stuff like that. And then just one day I was just like, like
Mm.
I don't it's not for me. And then it was funny because like I was like, well, even though I kind of like stopped, it was like for some reason it still kind of stuck with me a little bit. So I really think that tap is one of those things that like even though you might not assume that you could just take everything that you hear in the outside world and like absorb it with your ears and kind of like flesh it out with your shoes, that definitely is a thing. So a lot of the musicians that I played with, over the years, I'm some small part of that experience that we shared just through, tap dance.
And then to prepare for if it was spaces, did you study a lot of animals? Were you like, all right, I'm gonna be in with animals? So what did you inhabit? I can't remember do you remember the animals that you inhabited for spaces?
What's funny is Wynton has been working. He was working on spaces for like years.
Oh yeah.
We did it like in the early 2000, early 2000s. Like we only did like maybe 4 movements. And then he finished it for me and Buck over the past couple years. And one of my before I was gonna be or before I knew that I wanted to be an artist or a performer, I was either gonna play basketball or I was gonna be an archaeologist or I was gonna be a veterinarian or a zoologist. So I was just always in love with like nature, anthropology, and animals. So I literally was glued to like National Geographic or the Discovery Channel. Anything that was talking about science or anatomy and just things that weren't human. Like I was,
Mm.
obsessed with that stuff. So, Wynn calls up and he's like, "Yo, I'm doing this this thing about, you know, farm animals and different animals and stuff like that. I was like, say no more. I was like,
I'm
say no
in. Say
more.
less.
I was like, I got you, and then some. So it's like, and then, you know, obviously with tap shoes, you know, it could be, you know, perceived as being hard to kind of, you know, depict a swallow or, you know, a
Mm.
chicken or, you know, a penguin. But like, you know, the way my imagination is always sparked from the things that I've, you know, kind of taken in, even from National Geographic or the Discovery Channel. Like, you know, I was just like, okay, I know exactly how a lioness moves or a lion moves, or I know exactly how a penguin moves, and I know exactly how I think they would sound when they're
Mm.
moving across the ice or across snow. So I was just like, this is, you know, this is what I've been kind of dreaming about. Is just the things out of the ordinary that we can make so ordinary.
And I feel like your career now being a quadruple threat, you do all the things you wanted to do. You can play them on a television show. You can dance it out on stage. So got the best. I think you got the best of both worlds. I saw a question come in. Someone said, "Can tap dancers be comping musicians like a piece of rhythm section, or is it the style strictly soloistic?"
Nah, yeah, we could be anything. We could be anything we need to be. There's been a lot of shows that I've played where I just kind of sat back and, you know, sat in with the rhythm section and then maybe took a solo here and there. And then there's been shows that I played where I was more the featured soloist.
Mm.
I think it's purely circumstantial based off of what, you know, your band director or what you as a visionary is kind of feeling for that particular song or that particular concert or tour. So for something like Spaces, you know, it's not really to anybody's advantage for me to just sit back with the rhythm section because I have to be like a frog for
Right.
the movement for the movement
Right.
frogs. So you know, I would need to take the floor the entire time. But there's what I love to do is I love to be in and out. So I
Mm.
love to take my solos and take featured moments, but then drop back for the, you know, for the sax solo or for the clarinet solo or whoever else is soloing. So I won't just rock over an entire tune. That's one of the things I love is like, oh, I'm out. Okay, cool, I'm out. And then I'm back. I'm back. Oh, I'm back in. I'm back in. Oh, you
Mm.
want me? You want me to take one more? I'm back in. So I love
Right.
that. I love that synergy on stage of just letting the music just kind of guide everybody, you know, to a place where, you know, they're not thinking about, you know, any rules or any structure. Because it's like, you know, when it comes to jazz, the structure is just it's just jazz. It does
Mm.
what it does. It does what it does.
Right.
So yeah, that's a great question, though. That's a phenomenal question.
And even it's interesting because obviously, and I mean, the Jazz Link Center Orchestra, so some of the most amazing musicians just in the world. But like even anyone that's ever on stage with them. So during Transformations, which you choreographed a really beautiful dance piece for, one of my favorite. I mean, even that
Thank you.
piece, it was like part of the orchestra while the dancer was on stage. You know, it's they're playing music alongside it. So what's it also like? And we're almost running out of time here, but I have one last question for you. What's it
Yeah, go
like
ahead.
choreographing for like a big band piece? And how do you attack that?
Well, first of all, I love choreography. Choreography is not like I never set out to be a choreographer, but like it was just one of those things that like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I do that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I got you, I got you. For me, choreography, which for a lot of choreographers, this is the case, but it's very much so storytelling. And I'm obsessed with storytelling. I'm obsessed with character arc. I'm obsessed with character development, especially when music, is involved.
Mm.
And I'm a very intricate kind of storyteller. And so that can pose a huge problem. Like with the Ever Funky Lowdown, like there was so many accents, so many hits, so many different time signatures that the Jazz and Link Center Orchestra was throwing out. Like I was just like, I need to hit all of that, or I need to
Right.
recognize all of that. And with Transformation, it was a little different. Like, you know, there was a little bit more space. There was a little bit more, I would like to just say story kind of like orchestrated into what the orchestra was doing. And I had a hunch for this story that Wayne Brady was telling about some of his experience as a black man. And I kind of went over those with Glenn Close and Ted Nash and Wynton Marsalis. And I just I usually like to take a stab at it before I let people tell me what they want.
Mm.
I got it on like the first try, like the first couple tries I got it, and then Glenn came in and she was Glenn Close, and
Love
she
her.
did what
Incredible.
she does, which is amazing. And
Mm.
we were able to just kind of take that piece, you know, from a storytelling place to just a place where I feel like everybody could kind of understand, you know, the ups and downs of what it takes to be a Black man in our society. And that was just, you know, that was kind of easy because I was doing a Soldiers play on Broadway at the same
Mm.
time, and I was supposed to actually be in Transformation as a tap dancer. When I told Glenn and I told Ted and Winton, I was like, I can't, I literally can't because y'all are doing shows at the same time that we're having shows. But I was like, I would love to choreograph, and I would love to, you know, maybe not put a tap dancer in it. And they're like, wait a minute, a tap dancer, doing
I
choreography
remember
for a
getting that
contemporary
email and being
dancer.
like, wait, he's choreographing it. It's okay. I'm into it, but
And like he's not gonna be tapping it. I was just like, no, I was like, you know, I was like, you know, I'm hearing something different, you know, for it. And I was like, I would love to pitch, you know, a dancer that's able to kind of fuse many different styles together, you know, that has a contemporary and ballet background in Nigel Matthews. And I was like,
incredible.
I would love to explore, you know, Wayne Brady's piece and a few other pieces in the show through what, you know, through his blessings, what he has to offer. And we just found some good stuff. And I think like a tap dancer with everything that I do, whether it's acting or whether it's writing or whether it's choreographing. Like I always think musically like that. So we found some really good stuff through that mindset and through Glenn and Winton and Ted's vision. And yeah, it's just how I, you know, it's how I exist. It's
Mm.
how I exist.
It's a
So
good way to exist, and we're all very happy that you exist that way and you bring such beautiful art into the world. And I want you,
well, thank you so much.
before I let you go here, do you want to shout out any exciting things that you're up to, or anything that anyone watching should follow or go Google? I don't know, anything that you
Ooh,
want,
we
anything you
got
want to
some
plug.
things in the works. So it's just look like I was saying earlier about taking advantage of the situation that we're in. You know, I mean, Winton and I are behind a few projects that I think in the television and film space that
Mm.
I think a lot of people are going to be excited about very soon. So yeah, I'll drop that nugget right there.
I
I'll
don't even know
drop
what he's
that
talking
nugget.
about, so I'm excited to find this out as well.
Yeah, you know, I call him coach. Me and him, you know, we love basketball. So I always call him like, you know, my coach.
Mm.
And for years, when we were in Mexico with Chano Dominguez, I think in 2013, 2011, 2012, I forget when that was, but I told him, I was like, I'm going to get you out of the live space and I'm going to get you to do some projects with me, you know, in the TV and film space. I was like, I feel like you have a lot of stuff to offer. And I was like, I don't know when the time is going to come, but I was like, you know, I've been writing and I've been getting good at writing and developing teams that help me, you know, elaborate on a lot of ideas that I have. And I was like, when the time is ready, I was just like, just say yes. So I told him to say yes back in like 2000 and forever ago for
Perfect.
for projects that we have coming up now. So I was just like, you remember you said yes. So I was like, we're good.
You're like,
So I
I
was
have
like,
the
we're good.
receipts, so you
Yeah.
have to do it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're in there.
Amazing.
We're
Well,
in
we're
there.
all very excited to see those.
I'm excited. I'm excited for you guys to see them. You know what I mean? It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. This has been such a beautiful conversation. Our second guest ever for Jazz Intersections. We'll be back next
Oh,
week. Yeah, our second ever guest. Go down in
yes,
history. We had
yes.
Marcus Russell last week and this
Hey.
week. And then we'll see special guest for next week as a surprise, mostly because we're not sure yet, but it's going to be amazing. I'm telling
Oh,
you that
awesome,
much. So thank
awesome.
you so, so much. And we'll see everyone tuning in hopefully next week again. And Marcus, it's so great to chat with you. I just called you Marcus because I said
Yeah.
Marcus.
Sorry, it's okay.
I'll show myself out real quick. I'm just
No,
going to show myself out.
it's all
I'm
good.
like, great interview. Let me just call you by the wrong name at the very end,
No,
Mr.
it's all good.
Jared.
It's all good. Some people call me Jared. Some people call me Adrian. Just like, you know.
Thank you so,
Tune,
so much for
tune in
joining
for
us today.
season 3 of Manifest, by the way. Season 3 coming up very soon. It's gonna be crazy.
Yes. When does that come out?
Well, we start around September, so you know, we'll probably drop probably sometime in 2021, I would assume. So, well, it's gonna be crazy. Don't judge me though. Don't judge me. Don't judge me by my character.
We will not. Thank you so, so much. And have a fantastic day. And I hope that we get to speak with you soon. I can't wait to see all the amazing things you continue to do.
For sure. Have a great one.
Have a good
Talk soon.
one.